Good evening. This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting. New Jersey Democrat Harrison Williams resigned from the Senate this afternoon. He did so as his colleagues prepared to vote on expulsion. The senator already had been convicted by a jury on charges of conspiracy and bribery. Phil Jones has details.
With this one-paragraph letter from Williams to Vice President Bush, the President of the Senate, a 23-year Senate career came to an official end. Senator Williams was actually prepared to resign when he left his home early this morning, and he admitted that he really hadn't worried about his case overnight.
I'll have to confess, I got away from the case a little in Red Dante.
Williams headed to the Capitol with one final goal before resigning. The leadership would have to promise him on the floor that the Senate would launch an investigation into tactics the FBI used in the abscam operation. On the floor, Assistant Democratic Leader Cranston pledged to pursue what he called the horror story of pervasive government misconduct. Then Senator Inouye, who had volunteered to lead the Williams defense, looked at the senator and said, "I bid you farewell and Godspeed." His wife watched from the gallery as he announced his resignation, saying, "I leave in good health. I feel no stain. I have been strengthened." The act complete, the Senate recessed. Williams stood to shake hands with colleagues who lined up to say one last goodbye. Vice President Bush even went to the Senate gallery to help ease the pain for Mrs. Williams. In this moment of their personal sorrow, an embrace. Later, in a nearby office building, applause from some Senate employees. And from Williams, still no admission of legal or ethical wrongdoing.
A few hours ago, I never dreamed of that. I have stayed with this presentation of my case in a long battle, and I've stayed with it for one reason. Beyond my own personal knowledge that I was not guilty of any crime, I saw a consciousness of wrongdoing on the part of those who departed their Department of Justice, who departed their FBI and went out of control on this dastardly and evil adventure. I feel as if a burden has been lifted. To be foolish is to be human, and I was foolish. Do we apologize for being foolish? I don't know.
So the senators were spared the discomfort of expelling one of their colleagues. It is fair to say that the word for Senate relief today was resignation. Phil Jones, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
I may not seem special to you, but I am to these guys. I'm the chef, chauffeur, homework checker. So when I get a cold, I want to relieve all my cold symptoms. I take a complete cold medicine, Cotylenol.
Cotylenol is a complete cold medicine because it relieves congestion, cough, runny nose, aches, pains, fever, everything. Cotylenol is so complete.
Would you believe I've got a cold?
Cotylenol, complete cold medicine. No cold product relieves more cold symptoms.
It's not a game. For Michael Caine, Christopher Reeve, and Diane Cannon. It's a wickedly funny Who'll Do It. Ira Levin's Death Trap, rated PG, starts Friday, March 19th. Check newspapers for theater near you.
There are reports out of Guatemala about a new massacre of grotesque proportions. In a northern province, according to a local official and Guatemala's largest newspaper, an armed band attacked two isolated villages. At least 200 men, women, and children are reported to have been killed, all their throats slashed, some of the victims decapitated. Neither the political persuasion nor the identities of the attackers is known. The massacre is said to have occurred Saturday on the eve of Guatemala's national election. A third of El Salvador today was without electricity. Rebels blew up a high-voltage power line near San Vicente. The attack was part of an offensive opened yesterday in El Salvador's eastern region. Rebels also again attacked government troops in San Miguel, the country's third largest city. Heavy fighting was reported there, but the rebels withdrew after less than an hour. In this war, as in so many others, most people appear to be caught in the middle. allied with neither one side nor the other. They are humans simply trying to survive another day. Steve Croft found this to be the case in Santa Clara, El Salvador.
In the afternoons, the village of Santa Clara belongs to the women and children, to the chickens and pigs. The men are in a cemetery on the outskirts of town, watching the war in the valley below. The rumble of artillery, a puff of smoke, the crackle of small arms fire. For the past few days now, this has been the heaviest fighting in El Salvador. It's taking place on land these people used to farm until the guerrillas drove them off. Now we are prisoners, one man said. In the village, an old woman says it's too dangerous to gather firewood. The town's buses have all been blown up and people can't get around. With the national election just 3 weeks away, one might think these would be burning campaign issues. They might be if there were a campaign. Santa Clara is not a major campaign stop. There have been no politicians here kissing babies. Most of the people in the village have never voted before. They don't like politics, and it makes them very nervous to talk about it. Santa Clara residents are not only uncommitted, they are uninformed and uninterested. President Duarte has a few campaign posters up, and the guerrillas have sprayed on some literature of their own. Death to the dictator and to informers. Not even the mayor of Santa Clara knows the 6 parties that are running candidates in the election or what they stand for. No one in town does, and no one here seems to care about finding out. They say they'll probably vote, but only because the Army wants them to, and the Army is the only government these people have known for 50 years. The election may be important in Washington and in Managua and in Havana, but no one here expects it to open the roads or get their farmland back. Steve Croft, CBS News, Santa Clara, El Salvador.
It was announced in Washington and London today that the United States will sell Britain the advanced submarine-based Trident II nuclear missile system. The cost, at least $13 billion. The British decision was reached after considerable public debate and was greeted in Parliament by jeers from the opposition Labour Party. That party favors scrapping even Britain's current Polaris nuclear weapons, which the Tridents will eventually replace. It was at first glance an unbelievable sight. Frenchmen blowing up and smashing vats in a wine warehouse at Sète in southwest France. The catch was, it was Italian wine. The axe wielders were members of the Action Committee of a French Wine Growers Association. They are very unhappy about the importing of an inexpensive Italian wine to compete with native vintages. The Action Committee lived up to its name, and the wine flowed freely, an estimated 1.5 million gallons down the drain.
Something smells good. Oh, you made coffee.
Yeah, and it tastes great.
Of course. It's Maxwell House Master Blend.
Isn't that supposed to save us money?
It only tastes expensive.
Master Blend, a special blend of 100% coffee we make a special way so you can save money. Master Blend, it only tastes expensive.
KitchenAid believes in the quality of this KD20 dishwasher so much they're making you this offer. If you can find another dishwasher with all the features found in KitchenAid, they'll buy it for you. If you find any other dishwasher with a high-pressure multi-level wash system, built-in soft food disposer, durable porcelain, and steel construction, and all these other quality features, KitchenAid will buy it for you. So look for this checklist at your appliance dealer and compare. But don't settle for less.
Family, friends, and fans mourned comic actor John Belushi in a New York church service today. But even as tributes were paid, Harold Dow reports the comedian's death raised new concern about the way he died, a road others are traveling.
About 1,000 friends and relatives of comedian John Belushi came to St. John's Cathedral in New York to pay tribute to him today, just one day after the Los Angeles County coroner ruled his death was caused by a drug overdose. Inside, Dan Aykroyd, who co-starred with Belushi, said, quote, "John was a nighthawk, but he was not an immoral individual. What we had here was a good man and a bad boy," he said. Belushi's wife said her husband may have had troubles, but he wasn't a junkie. She said he didn't like needles. He didn't even like taking a blood test. But police officers who arrived at the Belushi bungalow last Friday said evidence of drug abuse was clearly visible.
We looked around the room eventually and did discover what I would call empty containers that would be used to contain, to me, normally cocaine. But to find someone of that stature that was injecting it was very startling to us. We didn't expect that at all.
The coroner's report indicated that Belushi died from injecting a combination of cocaine and heroin. On the streets, it's called speedballing. Users combine cocaine, an upper, with heroin, a downer, trying to create a feeling of in-between. Doctors say it's the kind of thing that could stop the heart and lungs from functioning. An admitted drug addict who asked not to be identified said she has known people who have died from speedballing, but nonetheless, she says it's growing in popularity.
It's not new, but more popular, I would say.
More people are doing it.
More people, right. Right.
John Randall, who runs a drug rehabilitation center for the wealthy, says speedballing isn't very widespread because no one can do it for long and survive.
It's the most dangerous form of drug abuse to inject cocaine intravenously. The most dangerous. The longest I've seen anybody shoot cocaine is about a year. And they don't last longer than that. They die or they become hospitalized for either mental or physical reasons.
Los Angeles police say they have no suspicion of foul play, but they do want to know how Belushi got the drugs that killed him. Harold Dow, CBS News, Hollywood.
The 9-week trial of Danish-born aristocrat Klaus von Bülow shook the seaside town of Newport, Rhode Island, a community identified with gracious living. Von Bülow is accused of trying to murder his socialite wife with insulin injections, and she remains in a coma. Tonight, as Liz Trotter reports, von Bülow's fate finally is in the hands of the jury.
The jurors were ready to take the case, arriving at the courthouse with their overnight bags. 3 of the prosecution's star witnesses also came: Martha von Bülow's children, Annie Laurie Kneissel and Alexander von Augsburg, as well as the household maid, Maria Schallhammer. In charging the jury, Judge Thomas Needham referred specifically to the state's most damaging evidence against Klaus von Bülow: a black bag found in his closet that contained a syringe, needles, and drugs, including insulin.
You have heard circumstances relating to a black bag and its contents. It is the state's burden of proving that on the totality of the evidence, that 1, the defendant had the opportunity, and 2, that he had the ability, and 3, that he did in fact inject his wife with insulin.
At noon precisely, the jury left the room to begin debating the fate of Klaus von Bülow. And shortly after, his attorney, Harold Price Farringer, was asked why he hadn't put his client on the stand.
In general, that we felt that the prosecution had not made out a case and that there was no need for him to take the stand.
He says your case wasn't good enough.
Mr. Farringer is entitled to his opinion.
The inevitable trial souvenirs appeared: von Bülow T-shirts and shopping bags proclaiming his innocence. Seeing this from the courthouse window, Farringer, standing with von Bülow, gave the thumbs-up signal. Meanwhile, at the back of the building, the jury was deliberating. After 5 hours, von Bülow departed, and so did the jury. They will resume tomorrow morning. Liz Trotta, CBS News, Newport, Rhode Island.
Basic to President Reagan's supply-side economics theory are the business tax cuts that became law October 1st. The theory is that those cuts would encourage business expansion. But the Commerce Department today reported that for the first time since 1975, business leaders actually plan to spend less for expansion and new equipment this year. A survey of business spending plans shows a 1% decline from last year in inflation-adjusted spending. And the Commerce Department says later surveys could show expansion plans cut even further in the next month or so. Industry sources said today that savings and commercial banks are negotiating to take over the nation's 4th largest mutual savings bank to avert what could be the biggest bank collapse in history. The New York Bank for Savings reported a 4th quarter loss of almost $35 million and has a reserve surplus of $37 million, barely enough to last through a similar quarter. The Associated Press says a decision will be announced by the end of the month if a merger partner or partners have been found. The New York Bank's problems are typical of the nation's savings banks, which reported their worst year ever in 1981. In Findlay, Ohio, Marathon Oil Company stockholders voted approval today of a $6.2 billion takeover by U.S. Steel. This is the second largest merger in American business history, next in size to DuPont's acquisition of Conoco last year for $7.8 billion. General Motors and the United Auto Workers will go back to the bargaining table tomorrow morning. In Detroit, the GM Council representing UAW locals voted overwhelmingly today to resume contract talks that broke off January 28th after only 5 days.
America on the move, on the tire Michelin pioneered, the Radial. We are moving thousands of trucks and trailers. We are delivering produce and flowers and school children. We are taking people to work, to shop, to play. We are pushing, hauling, carrying, scraping. When America demands performance, we deliver. We are Michelin, and we put America on radials.
Why do 9 out of 10 hospitals use milk of magnesia for relief of constipation? Most said because it's gentle and dependable. That's why you should use Phillips. Most doctors agree milk of magnesia is gentler than the ingredient in both these laxatives. And unlike bulk laxatives that can take days to work, Phillips works dependably, usually overnight. Remember, 9 out of 10 hospitals use milk of magnesia. So get Phillips, regular, mint, or convenient mint tablets.
Human rights violations in El Salvador were the subject today at hearings on Capitol Hill. In January, President Reagan certified that the Salvadoran government, quote, is making a concerted and significant effort to honor human rights. That cleared the way for more military assistance. However, a House subcommittee has challenged that certification and had planned to vote on a resolution to nullify it. The vote was postponed, however, until after the March 28th election in El Salvador to avoid sparking increased violence there. U.S. involvement in El Salvador has created an unusual predicament. For example, refugees from countries such as Poland or Afghanistan are readily granted political asylum here, but not so refugees from El Salvador. Mike Wallace explains.
Why are the Salvadorans dealt with so harshly when it comes to political asylum? Immigration attorney Michael Maggio thinks he has the answer.
Because you can't grant asylum to Salvadorian refugees on one day and then go to the Congress on the next and certify that the human rights situation is improving.
And unless the U.S. can certify the human rights situation is improving, they cannot, under the law, send any more military or economic aid to Salvador.
What you're saying is that the United States government almost knowingly, or knowingly, is sending people back to possible death. Possible death. Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely. There's no question about it.
Because they want to be able to certify that human rights are getting better?
Absolutely. And I'll tell you from our experience here, seeing dozens of Salvadorians every week, that people are scared to death that they will die.
Elliot Abrams is Assistant Secretary of State for Human Rights, the man whose office says yay or nay to requests for political asylum. And he insists that the Salvadorians who come here do so mainly for economic reasons.
They come here for a better life. They come here for better jobs. But that doesn't entitle them to asylum. Asylum is a very special thing, which we give to people who can prove that they have a well-founded fear of persecution.
And you think that Salvadorian refugees do not have, by and large, a well-founded fear of persecution?
That's right.
What happens to Salvadorians who try to come to North America? Hundreds of them wind up in detention centers like this one in Port Isabel, Texas, where you can remain for as long as a year before the Immigration Service gets around to hearing your case. And life in these camps is so grim that most Salvadorians who come here, told there is little eventual chance for asylum, decide to return to Salvador. They are flown back by the INS at the rate of $1,000 a month. And like this woman whom we met soon after her flight had landed back home, most are sad and scared. She told us she had left El Salvador because she could no longer support herself and her child. The reason? Her husband had been seized from his home by a death squad, masked assailants who dragged him outside and killed him as she and her baby watched. Who were the men? She doesn't know. Why did they kill her husband? She says she doesn't know that either. But Elliot Abrams insists human rights in Salvador are improving.
That's right.
You're the only one who says so, as far as I can make out.
There are some, the Central American University in El Salvador also believes that violence has decreased. But I would state again...
ACLU says you're wrong. Amnesty International, with a flyer out just today, says that you're wrong.
We found that the human rights situation had improved in 1981 over 1980, and that the government was making what we thought were strong efforts to improve it further. It has a long way to go.
If it hadn't improved, what would have happened? If it had deteriorated?
If it deteriorated, then we wouldn't have made the certification. We would have had to cut off aid.
Leonel Gomez was a former government official in Salvador who survived 4 assassination attempts when he exposed a $40 million corruption scheme involving members of the Salvadorian army. He fled to the U.S.
Well, see, we see this whole thing from an entirely different perspective. Let me tell you a story that I witnessed. When I was still in Salvador, a man asked me to go to the morgue to help him because he had to go there and pick up the body of his young daughter that had disappeared 2 days before. I went with him to the morgue. And as we walked in, there was the body of this young woman laying there, dead. And then this man said, but my daughter was not pregnant 2 days ago. And then he opened up her dress to see what was inside of her. They had slit her open and they had put the head of her boyfriend inside. This is the sort of thing that is going on in El Salvador. But how do you convey this to a man that is sitting here in Washington, D.C., behind a desk, in this society that has been blessed in so many ways? How do you make them understand the meaning of repression?
We are not singling out El Salvador. We are saying that we're going to treat it the way we treat the rest of the poor and violent places in the world. We're going to try to do what we can to help, but we cannot take everybody who wants to come here from those places. There are just hundreds of millions of them.
No one is suggesting that U.S. doors be open to the millions of refugees who would like to come here simply for a better life. What the Salvadoran refugee is saying is, don't send me back now until my safety can be assured. Mike Wallace, CBS News, New York.
The UN Commission on Human Rights today called for an international investigation into Poland's military repression. This was the first time that Geneva-based organization has taken action against a communist state. Poland called the Western-supported resolution unacceptable interference in its domestic affairs. In Poland today, the martial law government said that 3,601 people, most of them Solidarity dissidents, are being held without charges in isolation centers. 21 of those inmates are former ranking government officials. CBS News President Van Gordon Sauter today announced an overnight news broadcast Monday through Friday to begin in September. This broadcast will air from 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. with built-in windows for local news reports. Details of the format and content are still being planned, but Sauter called it, quote, a unique challenge that we eagerly welcome.
Once you put motor on a can, you can't see it, you can't feel it, you can't watch it work. So how do you know how good it is?
At Quaker State, we put it in writing. We back up our quality with a lifetime guarantee.
How do you know how good Quaker State is?
We guarantee every new car engine against oil-related failure for as long as you own your car. We put it in writing.
We're working to keep your car staying on the road.
How do you know how good Quaker State is? We put it in writing. No one else does.
Welcome to warm afternoons in Gallo.
Sunny rhyme days with your friends and mine.
Special moments.
The feeling shows. A Gallo toast with the rhyme that flows. Oh, the joy of sharing Gallo wine.
Will we ever have a house like this?
Share the joy of Gallo wine.
In a line that can be regarded as either comforting or cheerless, Robert Louis Stevenson wrote, "Old and young, we are all on our last cruise." But in a society that celebrates youth, the old are too often seen as a race apart. Now, as Ed Rabel reports, the Times see the old taking orders from the young and getting paid for it.
These are old people in Miami. They are people who've outlived their work. In America, that often means they've outlived their usefulness.
Sir, can I help you? Miss, can I help you here?
But a strange thing is happening. Old people, old retired people across the country are coming back into the workforce because they need the work and because employers realize they need them. Fast food restaurants are recruiting the old because they say young workers aren't as plentiful anymore, and because old workers are willing and dependable.
Medium Coke.
Shakespeare wrote, "Crabbed age and youth cannot live together." That line has no meaning for Anne Mastrangelo.
An order of fries.
She is 56 years old and she works in a fast food restaurant in Miami.
Put some fries on, Mike.
Once she felt old, lonely, felt like retiring.
And it makes me feel young. You know, working with young people makes me feel young. So that's why I like doing it.
Thank you. Have a good day now. Come again.
These are bad times. Social Security is not enough to live on.
The prices are raised, you know, even the gas to heat a place, and electric has gone 3 times higher, and groceries. You really have to watch to buy groceries.
Terry Parsons is 70 years old. She's been working here in Orlando for 5 years. She does it for the money, but it's more than for the money.
Come back and see us, will you?
We will. We will.
There's a refill on tea. Do you have tea? The important thing to me is to know that I've helped someone else more than it is myself. I don't think it's my ego, I hope not, but I'd love people to say that I've helped them, did something for them.
Phil Milton was old but not ready for retirement. He started to work here in Rahway, New Jersey 20 years ago when he was 66 years old. Phil Milton does this for the money, but it's more than for the money.
If I'm home, I am always sleeping or something. But when I'm here, I'm alive and I'm working. I always feel that people could do whatever they want to do if they don't let themselves go. They just give up life, but I don't intend to do that. I'll probably be working for the next 20 years if they let me.
Ed Rabel, CBS News, Miami Beach.
And that's the CBS Evening News for this Thursday. Dan Rather reporting from New York. Thank you for joining us. Good night.
If you're shipping big and small packages, you could feel left up in the air. If you don't know the company that has its own scheduled delivery of virtually any size package the next morning. Nope, it's not any of them. Introducing Emery AM. Only Emery delivers any size shipment from ounces to tons to most of America the very next morning. It's the Emery Edge. Take us up on it.
What do doctors recommend to avoid constipation? These days, doctors stress the importance of fiber in the diet. Food fiber that helps the system regulate itself naturally. Metamucil is made from natural fiber, no chemical stimulants. So for occasional constipation, doctors recommend Metamucil more often than any other laxative. The way to overcome constipation is the natural way. But if not nature, Metamucil.
This is CBS.
Tennessee is a leader in a bad category, bankruptcies. And state officials are trying to get a handle on a high-budget Medicaid program. We'll have details on those stories and more next on Eyewitness News.
Good news, North Central Tennessee. General Motors has announced cash allowances of up to $750 on the new Buicks. Choose new beautiful Buick Century and receive a check for $500. Or new Buick Skylark. Make your best deal and receive a check for $750. And for sporty good looks, there's Skyhawk and a check for $750.